make sure you go over here and subscribe to my live stream channel. I'll be live streaming on a regular basis from December 19th, 2018. And there will be content on here which you will not find on my main channel. So all of you guys, make sure if you want to be up on my live streams that you subscribe to this channel right here. It's called Hatman Boxing Live, The Objective Perspective. Go over and subscribe now, then enjoy the rest of this video. Deontay Wilder says that he aims to add over 30 pounds of muscle for the Tyson Fury rematch. That's right. He claims he wants to come in at around 245 pounds, which is way, way heavier than the 212 he weighed in the first fight. Now, this isn't the first time that Deontay Wilder has come out and said that he's targeting a much higher weight. A couple of years ago, he was talking about being 250, 245 for a fight before. Now, if you look at his record, the heaviest he's ever weighed was 229 pounds against Eric Molina. And for a couple of fights, you see Molina 229, Duopa 228, Spilka 228, 226 against Arreola, 222 against Washington, 220 in this Devon rematch. Then for his past two fights, his weight has dropped dramatically. Now, when his weight dropped for the Luis Ortiz fight, there were people who said, well, Deontay Wilder himself said he'd been sick in training camp, which may account for why he was so light. But then he weighed 212 against Fury, even lighter. What can account for that? Why has this guy lost so much muscle since 2015? In 3 years, to be losing that much muscle is strange. What kind of strength work is he not doing now that he was doing before? Is he cut down on the calories? Is he just training much harder? Is he doing different types of training? Why has Deontay Wilder's body weight reduced so massively? Now, some people will say, who cares? It's irrelevant. He's still performing. The Luis Ortiz fight was his best performance to date. And although he only got a draw against Tyson Fury, many will argue that Tyson Fury is head and shoulders above anybody else Deontay Wilder's been in the ring with. And he still managed to drop Tyson Fury twice. So people will be looking at it from a glasses half full perspective. However, the fact that he says he wants to get his body weight up again, he obviously feels like there's something missing in his arsenal. If he feels like, he wants to gain a lot of weight and 212 is too light. Now, if we have a look at what Deontay Wilder says himself here, he says, yeah, we're going to adjust the weight. We're going to do a lot of things, especially with the weight, because these guys have outweighed me in the majority of my career. I have never worried about weight because I have the power to substitute for it. I have devastating power that these guys don't have, so I've never worried about weight because I felt like weight is just an image. At the end of the day, how many times over and over again have guys outweighed me and they were left on their back? None of them could put me on my back, being so light of a fighter. That will just tell you everything. These guys can't put me on the ground, but I can put them on the ground. I know that. And they ask him, why would you want to fix what ain't broken then? And he says, well, just because of my team want me to do it, and we work as a team. So me and Shelly Finkel talked about this, and of course I'm going to do what I want to do. But I went back and said, you know what? If you want to see certain things, then I'm going to give it to you. I'm never the ones that's just solely sold on what I want to do. There's certain things, but we work as a team, and we've been working for this long. And if it's adjustments to be made, I'm willing to do that just to see. Goes on to say, my goal was always to be 245 pounds. That's what my goal has always been. But somebody's going to get hurt. If weight brings big man power, and I already have power and speed, somebody going to get hurt. If you people want to see me put on weight and someone get hurt, then so be it. But you never want to see no one like Adonis Stevenson. I'm always thinking about him, and I tell people all the time, we risk our lives in the ring. We risk our lives. And I know I have the power to hurt anyone. All right, so those are the words of Deontay Wilder talking about why he wants to put this weight on. Now, he's talked about his manager there, Shelly Finkel. And this kind of reminds me of Bill Caton, who is the former co-manager of Mike Tyson, and later on people like Tommy Morrison and even Michael Grant, who was a heavyweight contender in the 90s, famously got knocked out in 2 rounds by Lennox Lewis in his first world title attempt. And Bill Caton had this obsession with his fighters fighting like Mike Tyson, trying to give them to Kevin Rooney or people who could emulate the D'Amato style. And yeah, like I say, he just seemed to have this obsession with it, as though that was the best way that anybody, regardless of how tall they were or what attributes they had, that was the best way for anybody to fight in a D'Amato, Mike Tyson style. And so with Tommy Morrison, who Bill Cayton managed for a while, you could see that there was a Mike Tyson influence. And to be honest, that style, I think it worked fairly well for Tommy Morrison. Look, Tommy Morrison had limitations, but in a number of his fights, when he used that Mike Tyson-esque style, it did work for a time. But with Michael Grant, who was a 6'7", 250-pound heavyweight, Cayton's insistence that this guy fight like Mike Tyson was bizarre. And it was, I can't remember if it was one of the trainers of Michael Grant or Grant himself or somebody connected to Grant's team. I remember reading in one of the boxing publications at the time, they were talking about how Cayton wanted him to fight like Mike Tyson. And they said it's crazy. And maybe I'm making a mistake here thinking that Michael Grant was managed by Cayton, but I think he was. I think he was at some stage, or he had some kind of association with Bill Cayton, but I think he was managed by him. But I definitely remember reading that, a member of Michael Grant's team saying that Bill Cayton wanted Grant to fight like Mike Tyson. You see, managers are very different to promoters, because most boxing managers, let me not say most, but a lot of boxing managers haven't had any boxing experience. They're not trainers. They're just people who understand business. Okay. And they understand the boxing business. In terms of the fighting side of it, they're very often not experts. And so for one of those kind of guys to be telling you to do something, I'm not saying you should totally ignore your manager, but in my experience, there isn't a massive amount of wisdom when it comes to managers telling you how to train and all that kind of business. Again, dependent on a manager, maybe it's a former fighter or something like that, in which case it may be different. But in the case of Shelly Finkel, do you think this guy really knows that much about boxing? Do you think this guy really knows what's best for Deontay Wilder? I'm not saying that his approach in this situation is as foolish as Bill Cayton, thinking a 6'7", 250-pound heavyweight should be fighting like Mike Tyson. But be that as it may, Deontay Wilder is naturally slim. He's naturally skinny. If you pack a load of weight on him, a load of extra muscle, it's not only going to slow him down, but it's also going to make him more hittable. It's going to make his punches less easy to predict. It may even impact his stamina, because his body is not designed to carry 245 pounds of muscle. His heart and lungs, his respiratory system, his cardiovascular system, they're not designed genetically to carry 245 pounds. So if you've got a man like a Lennox Lewis, who's naturally supposed to be 245, it doesn't affect him so much when he weighs that heavy, okay? Because his body was designed to weigh that heavy. But Deontay Wilder's body is not designed to be that big. His body is designed to be, from the 212s through to the mid 220s. That's his natural range. So to push him way above his natural body weight range, I don't think there's much good going to come from that, to be honest with you. But why would his team want that? I really don't know. I think they might be overreacting a little bit to the trouble that he had in the Tyson Fury fight. I suspect that Deontay Wilder, if you look late in the fight, Deontay Wilder was gassed. And in fact, Tyson Fury was the one who appeared to have a lot more gas in the tank in the 12th round. Even, despite the knockdown, he appeared to have a lot more left at the end of the 12. Well, that's because Deontay Wilder was throwing home runs for the whole fight and missing most of the time when he was throwing home runs. That takes it out of you. It don't matter how good your stamina is. If you punch the way Deontay Wilder punches, if you put as much leverage and as much torque into your shots as Wilder does, and you keep missing, it's going to take it out of you. It don't matter how fit you are. And Deontay Wilder is very physically fit. He does have good stamina. There is no stamina issue there. It's just that he was selling out with home run shots from the very first round. When he got close to Fury, he was throwing home run right hands. And it does tire you out more when you're missing as opposed to connecting. And obviously, it's going to have an effect on your opponent if you're connecting as well. It's going to, weaken him over time. But if you're missing, your opponent is maintaining his energy levels, or at least his energy levels are not as depleting that quickly because he's getting away from the shots rather than getting hit by them. But your energy levels are depleting because you're constantly missing these big home run shots. Tyson Fury, on the other hand, he wasn't loading up in the fight. He wasn't going for big power shots. He was just trying to stick and move, hit and not get hit. So, of course, his stamina in the 12th was still good, even though he's a hell of a lot heavier than Deontay Wilder and he was coming back from what he's coming back from. The fact that he wasn't loading up with shots, the fact that he wasn't, missing with huge haymakers helped his stamina. If Tyson Fury had been loading up as much as Deontay Wilder was loading up and going for home run shots, Tyson Fury would have gassed out too. In fact, he probably would have gassed out quicker. But he was smarter than that, and he realized that this is a long game, not a short game. So he was able to maintain stamina late into the fight. Now, are there any advantages for Deontay Wilder if he was to put on some extra muscle? Potentially there could be, all right? Now, Deontay Wilder is one of those naturally skinny guys. And sometimes with someone who's naturally skinny, you see this with kids in the gym, young teenage guys who maybe haven't been boxing very long and they haven't yet developed their full muscularity as a man. David Haye was a bit like this. Mick Carney, who's, the late Mick Carney, said that when he first had David Haye in the gym, David Haye was all arms and legs at Fitzroy Lodge. Yeah, he was a bit ungainly and uncoordinated, all arms and legs. And that's partly because his muscles, he's got very long limbs, David Haye, his muscles hadn't developed fully in order to be able to control and stabilize the movement of those limbs, if that makes sense. Okay, very long limbs, but the muscularity in your core, in your shoulders, in your chest, and your back hasn't quite developed to control the limbs properly, to make them stable, to be able to allow you to make controlled movements with the limbs. The movements are going to appear a little ungainly and a little wild until you develop the muscularity, which allows you to, as I say, coordinate them a bit better. This may be the case with Deontay Wilder. If he was to put on more weight, he may be able to coordinate his limbs a little bit better. But with that, he would be sacrificing speed. He would be sacrificing stamina. He'd be sacrificing mobility. And as I say, somebody who is not naturally supposed to weigh 245, I think it's more of a detriment than anything. And I do think that Wilder's team are probably overanalyzing what happened in the Fury fight. They took the fight, in my opinion, believing that Fury was food, basically, that he wasn't ready for this opportunity and that they were going to take advantage and, defeat him while he was weak. Tyson Fury himself has said this, and I concur with it. And so the fight turning out to be so competitive and so difficult for Wilder, I think has shocked his camp a little bit. Deontay Wilder looked shell-shocked after the fight. I know he was exhausted, but I think him and his team were a bit shell-shocked that Tyson Fury ran him so close. And so in their shell-shocked mindset, they're panicking a little bit. Oh God, you need to put loads of weight on. You need to do this. You need to do that. We need to change stuff. I think it could well be down to the fact that they underestimated Fury in terms of the way the fight played out. The fact they underestimated Fury in terms of where he's at in his rehabilitation. But also, Deontay Wilder himself alluded to the fact that he felt the pressure of being in his first big pay-per-view and having the expectations of the American public on his back. And I did talk about this in the lead up to this fight, and I was wondering whether it would affect Wilder or it wouldn't. And I was thinking, Tyson Fury's been in a big pressure situation like this before against Klitschko. Wilder hasn't. This, in a sense, is Wilder's first rodeo. But the fact that Tyson Fury's getting so much support might take pressure off Wilder. So, I was back and forth wondering how Deontay Wilder would deal with the pressure. He says the pressure did get to him a little bit because he went for the KO and he was trying to force the KO from early on in the fight. And that was evident. The first, as I say, exchange they got into, or the first time Deontay Wilder got close to Tyson Fury, he was throwing home run shots. Okay. And he was throwing home run shots throughout the fight whenever he got the opportunity, and they were missing. You see, there was a sense of anxiousness about Deontay Wilder. He was just anxious to get the fight over as soon as he could, rather than boxing his way into the fight, rather than being sneaky and clever like he was against Luis Ortiz. You see, against Luis Ortiz, there wasn't the anxiousness. You know? He was, to me, more relaxed against Ortiz and his punches flowed more. Whereas against Tyson Fury, anxious, wanted to get the job done. And I think that is his, him being more relaxed in the rematch and not being so anxious, I think will make far more of a difference than him putting on weight and any kind of extra physical strength or, stability that might add to him. Extra coordination. I think he'd just be better off working on being more relaxed, not thinking about the knockout, just boxing his way through the fight. And again, people who say that this was some kind of boxing masterclass by Fury and it was a total whitewash and it wasn't even close and Fury was just schooling him, I don't buy it. I've been and watched the fight several times without the hype, without the emotion that so many Tyson Fury fans seem to have, with the sound off. And that was a close fight. CompuBox backs up the fact that it was a close fight. There was very little to split them in terms of punches landed in most of the rounds. So if there's very little to split them in terms of punches landed in most of the rounds, then Deontay Wilder don't have to make a massive adjustment in order to turn some of the rounds he lost into rounds that he'll win in a rematch. You see, I do think Wilder's team are panicking a little bit with the talk of him coming in at 245 plus. I don't think they need to make such a dramatic adjustment to improve Wilder's performance next time around. Although you do have to take into account the probability that Tyson Fury is going to be a lot better in the rematch himself. So that's my take on Deontay Wilder, talking about coming in at 245, buffed up, stacked. I think they're panicking a little bit and they're overdoing it. And they just need to work on him being a bit more relaxed and not forcing the knockout. He said it so, he said so himself in the post-fight interviews. So yeah, that's my take on it. Drop your take in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.